How do you deal with the fear of missing out? Oh, you know what I mean?
Girl, I used to be her, where I didn't want to miss out, where I was a people pleaser, where I wanted to be everywhere and do everything that everybody was doing. But when I realized that it started to cost me, it started to cost my capacity. It started to cost me just even purpose of being home with my daughter, Mae Jones. It started to cost me being the wife that I needed to be. For me, the people pleasing started to dissipate once I realized, and the fear of missing out, once I realized and anchored in my identity in him, the fear of missing out for me now is like, I want to be invited, but I'm not going.
Yeah.
I can't go. I'm not going. I'm tired. I got to do X, Y, and Z. But I know there was a time and place where I didn't miss out because I wanted to be at everything. But I thought that me being at everything and showing up at everything was a validation on who I was and where I needed to be and how people saw me, because I wanted to please man and not God.
Okay, so I am kind of struck by not just you, but like your whole family.
Aww.
You know, it's not just that you all are who you are. It's that you all have maintained your reverence in the midst of your success. Can you tell me about like growing up in your household? What type of, because there's, my father always talks about like something's in the soup. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was something in the
What was
soup.
something in the soup? What was in the soup
So
at the Manuel household?
What was happening over there?
Child, my mama just staying honest.
Yeah.
So my dad was a professional athlete. So he was a baseball player. So I was born into this. I was born into limelight. I was born into cameras, lights, microphones. And so they were people who were very, very much anchored in purpose. And so for us, that's all that we knew, was that, yes, dad is who dad is. Dad is outside working, doing his job. My mom was home and it was instilling us in the word. You know, this is the greatest among us serve. The gift that God has given you, you are used to use it to serve people. And so honestly, I don't know any other way. If I'm being honest with you, I was born into this. I don't know what life would look like if I wasn't on the other side. But I know that nothing is wasted, and understanding, like looking back then on the crumbs and like the seeds that she planted in our life, as well as my dad, is why we are all where we are today. And my dad being a successful baseball player, coach, him being in the limelight and seeing how he carried himself, that was very inspirational. So my dad was someone that, you know, was a coach, but also was mentoring the players at the same time. My mom was doing private Bible studies with the wives. And so that's all I knew. And so, you know, naturally for me, I do private Bible studies. You know what I mean? I serve with the gift that God has given us. And so I believe wholeheartedly, unequivocally so, we are all where we are because of the seeds that they have planted in our lives.
Do you feel like you ever went through a season where you were like, you know, I'm trying on their faith, their religion, but it's not quite mine yet? Like, was there ever a season, or was it always just innate for you?
I think that's a great question. I think I did not fully, I mean, we know him, right? So it's like growing up, just like even with your dad, you know that you hear it, but I didn't start to truly experience who God was until I moved to LA, which was about 20 years ago, when I realized like, oh, I got to do this on my own.
Yeah.
I got to figure all this out on my own. I can't lean on my worldly father. I have to learn how to really lean on my heavenly father. What does this mean? What does this look like? Because for me, growing up, even in college days, like I still had my parents, you know what I mean? I still had them to lean on to. And so I would say I wasn't necessarily putting on their faith. I think I was just going with the flow of what that was. But then once I came out here, I was like, oh, I got to figure this out. I have to really know and walk boldly into what I feel like he's calling me to. And it was a lonely road. You know, it was a lonely, pressing road. But that's when I feel like my relationship with the Father grew more intimately than ever, when I was fully on my own.
How does someone cultivate their own like personal relationship with God?
For me, spending time. spending time, like truly knowing who he is. I mean, be still and know that I am God. You have to be still. And then you begin to know. It's just like friendship. You spend time with them. That's how you get to know them. You understand the character of them. You understand the equity of them. So for me, sure, there's seasons all the time where I'm like, oh my God, is God going to show up? But I know who he is. I remember the equity of God. So for me, when I moved out here, all I did, you know, when there was moments of not wanting to miss out or whatever, it's like, let me go in my prayer closet, or let me sit in here and just soak in his presence and hear worship. But it still was a process, and it still is. I mean, I definitely feel like we are homies 1000%. That is my ace boo coon, but it's still, we will, you know, we get to know him until we go to heaven.
There have been so many different like versions of your life that you have experienced. You know, so like you and God go together real bad because you and God been to a lot of places. Do you want to talk about like all of the different steps your journey has taken?
Yeah. So when I moved to LA, I went to school for communications. Studied that for a little bit, journalism. And then when I when I graduated, I went to New York and had a internship at CBS Sports and Extra TV. So I knew there was some type of communication journalism, what that was going to look like. Then from there, I moved to LA and I started styling with my brother, Jerry Lorenzo. We were styling videos before he was even Fear of God. So I was styling with him and we were just both in the fashion industry. And then from there, he started building Fear of God and I went along with him. And then fast forward 4 or 5 years later, this was a ghetto transition. I knew God was calling me out of there, but it was such a hard decision to make because I wanted to continue to build this brand with my brother, but I knew God was calling me elsewhere.
First of all, okay, can we, before you just like skip on to the next step, I feel like we should unpack that a little bit.
Let's unpack it.
Okay, so you're working with family.
Yep. Yes. We working with family, girl.
You know, and all of the beauty and complexity that comes with that. The beauty
and the nuances.
Yes. All right.
It was... And it's so funny because when he asked me, I'll never forget when he asked me, I was in my apartment, or I was in my friend's apartment, and I read the text, and I heard so clearly, go and help pick up your brother's cross with him. Mm-hmm. So it was a space and a posture of service for me. So there was no ego, there was no pride. So right when I was like, okay, then I will say yes. I knew going into that building, I knew coming alongside him, I was there to serve. And so it wasn't as complex or nuanced as it may seem because I made sure I stayed in position. Because there were moments where it's like, Jerry, but it's like, oh, okay, that's still your boss, that's your brother, there's respect there, there's love there. But then also, I had a job to do as well. Not only just help him push along this brand, but be his sister. Yeah. Be his eyes and ears, see what's happening in the culture, in the office, etc. And so I think I was apprehensive at first because I didn't want our relationship, for it to go any friction or any tension, but there wasn't until it was time for me to go.
I was going to say, because there's this idea of like loyalty to your family, whether girl. Okay. Loyalty to the family versus loyalty to your call and your purpose. And this is like a universal experience. It doesn't matter if you're like a PK like I have been or your brother's building a brand like yours. I think that there is this moment whether we're going to continue to be loyal to the way they communicate, loyal to the way that they heal or don't heal versus charting your own path. Can we talk about that sense of betrayal that can come when you say, you may be what I know, you may be who I have been shaped around and who I love, but in this season of my life, I have to do something different.
Yeah.
It can be really hard.
And that's honestly why it helped me to like fully uproot this root of people pleasing. Because I wanted to please him. I wanted to make sure that it was okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that, are you okay? And not even realizing, as I was like digging deeper into this people pleasing, like why I'm this way, I left a lot of my rejection wounds unattended. So I was pulling from a place of rejection. I was being led by my wounds as opposed to my discernment in those relationships. But then when it came to him and leaving, I knew I couldn't afford to stay any longer. It had nothing to do with him.
Yeah.
It had everything to do with what God was asking me to do, but also because I did some of that personal work prior, it was like, okay, even though this is really tricky and this is really hard and I want to stay with you and I want to please you, I can't, because I'll then betray, like you said, myself. And I wasn't used to putting myself first. I wasn't used to saying yes to me before I would say yes to everybody else. And so I think it was a tricky transition, not because I was clear. It was more of like, I knew that he may feel some type of way, but then literally probably, I think after we launched season 1 of Now with Natalie, he's like, oh, I get it. I understand now. I get it. And now he's like my biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
But it is that tension and that nuance of wanting to honor what you know, but then also honoring where God is really calling you to go and be.
It's kind of wild when you're from a close-knit family.
And we're also like this.
You seem like it. Of course,
Yes.
I don't know a lot of you
Yeah.
like personally, but just from what I see on social media, you're very close-knit.
Yes.
And I think there's a different dynamic when the family maybe doesn't have as close of a relationship. But when you are known as a unit,
Yeah.
it can be difficult for you to find your own individuality.